The third Ara is, who is the Baal Memra in our Gemara that said, Kol HaMeshakeach Dover Echad Mitalmudai, he's over b'lav, 2 lav, and 3 lav, and who's the original Baal Memra? It was Reish Lakish. It occurred to me, Reish Lakish is very worried. Do not forget one halacha of your learning. Certainly the way the Shulchan Aruch Harav understands it. Do not forget one halacha of your learning. The Gemara says in Masechta Sanhedrin, Daf Chav Daled Amar Aleph, Amar Ula, Haroya es Reish Lakish bebeis Medrash. If somebody saw Reish Lakish in Beis Medrash learning, Ki'ilu Oiker Harim v'Toichan in Zebezeh. He was such a charif, he was literally like observing an Oiker Harim. He was uprooting mountains from the ground and he was grinding one against the other. Reish Lakish was an Oiker Harim. What does that mean? So we know that all Talmidei Chachamim back in the day were divided into 2 groups. There were the Sinais and there were the Oiker Harims. The Sinai was someone that was a big Baki, that his Mishnayos was Siduroi Sloi, K'Shulchan Aruch, just like it was at Sinai. And the Oiker Harim was the great Lamdan, he was the big Charif. Reish Lakish falls into the category of being an Oiker Harim. It's a Mefurish Gemara, it's Sanhedrin, Daf Chav Daled Amud Aleph. But the point is, Reish Lakish, the Oiker Harim, Reish Lakish, the super Lamdan, Reish Lakish is the one that said you're not allowed to forget 1 ounce of your learning. It means also Shmeinin that because Reish Lakish was a super Lamdan, it meant he had a Shvacha Bekiyas. Reish Lakish is of the opinion that if somebody forgets Davar Echad mi Mishnasai or Davar Echad mi Talmudai, that's his lashon, he's already Oiker Alav. The teretz is his Iker Inyan of his Steinus wasn't being an Oiker Harim, wasn't being a Lamdan. But as it relates to his Bekiyas, of course he had a Bekiyas. In his own words, what did he say? He said that if somebody would go ahead and figure out one thing of his learning, be over Loisase. It occurred to me further, who's the mandam in the Mishnah? Who said in the Mishnah, if somebody forgets Davar Echad mi Mishnasai, Ma'ala olav hakasav ki'ilu mischai ben Ashay? It's Rameir. Rameir is the one in the Mishnah Novus. Rabbi Destoip, Rabbi Yanai, Mishum Rameir. If you look at that very same Gemara, in Sanhedrin Chav Dalam, the next Gemara, Amar Ravina said, if somebody saw Rameir in Beis Medrash, it's ki'ilu oiker harei harim v'toichan en zebezeh. It's not only as if you see someone being Oiker Harim. This is Oiker Harei Harim ben Benoishal Harei Harim, right? So Rameir wasn't just an Oiker Harim. He was an Oiker Harei Harim. Rameir, who's the Spitz Oiker Harim. You think Rameir was Mezalzel when it came to his Bekiyas? Chalila. He's the one that said, Truth is, we've mentioned a similar art to this many times over the years. And that is, the Gemara says in Masechtas Megillah, Daf Yud Ches Amud Beis. We know that Rameir was a Sofer, right? Rameir was a Sofer. The Gemara says Allah, they are not allowed to write an ois achas of kisvei kodesh shleim yaksav. So when a Sofer is writing, whatever he's writing, he's writing Sefer Torah. You have to look in the Sefer Torah and you have to go ahead and you write it. Faith the Gemara, Amr Hashem and Elazar, there was a story through Rameir. He once went to be Ma'abed Shana in Asya, and they didn't have a Megillah. They didn't have a Megillah Esther. He said, no worries. He sat down and he wrote us the Megillah Esther. How can you write a Megillah Esther? Well, chayret shleim yaksav. So Amr Rabavo said, Shani Rameir, the Mekayim Bei va'afapecha yaishiru negdecha. He was someone that, by him, his Torah was so clear, and he had such clarity in his information that he was able to write even Shleim and Aksav. Now, we've mentioned many times over the years, Rabbi Margolis said that what's the oimek, v'afapecha yashiru negdecha. Said, look at the beginning of the pasuk. That a person has to have the Torah so clear that he literally sees it in front of him. And he goes and he gives us whole arichas that there are 2 types of people that have good memories. Some people just have what he calls zikaron phenomenally, right? In English, a phenomenal memory. And he says there are other people that when they see something, they take a tzilum. They literally take a picture and they could just upload the image if they ever need it. And like this, they see it in front of them. What the Gemara was saying about Rameir was that Shani Rameir was different. That for him, it was Einechel Enoichach Yabitu V'afapechi Yashiru Negdecho. When he was Shalom and Aksav, it was Min Aksav. Because Rameir said, Rabbi Margolis, takes one to know one, had a photographic memory. And because he had a photographic memory, so he was being Mekayim Einechel Enoichach Yabitu. What's the problem? The problem is Shalom and Aksav, Nish by Rameir. Rameir is B'toichach Aksav. And the Oinik Rabbi Margolis was trying to say, well, Snapshot Rameir had a great memory. Great memory is Oichet Shalom and Aksav. Unless you have the photo stored. Oh, if you have it stored, now you're seeing it. A photographic memory means you're looking at it. That's Einechel Enoichach Yabitu, and that's the Indian of this pasuk. But the bottom line is, this is Rameir again. Although Rameir is the Oiker Harei Harim, right? The Gemara says in Erevin Yud Gimel Amud Beis that we never pass like Rameir. Why? Because Rameir had the ability to be Metar Shrotzim, and the Olam didn't know how to be Oimed Al Soif Taite. He was such a super duper Lamdan. You think it's only a Lamdan? No. Rameir had this incredible Zikar. Rameir is the one who says, Kala Sheicheach davar echad mi mishnasei malol v'kosav kilim eschai benavshoy. Reish Lakish and Rameir, the two tzaddikim that the Gemara describes as incredible Iker Harims. But at the same time, you find this in you. But I'll tell you one hoisafa to this. Lulei de mistafina. It's so subtle, but I think it's emes lamitai. And that is, remember the Kliva Get? Obviously, we're not going to recap the Kliva Get now. But the story of the Kliva Get with Itzik and his Bnei Bayis and that whole episode that took place. So obviously it was a discussion in Hilchos Shaita. Did Itzik have a din of a Shaita? Did he not have a din of a Shaita? But the reason that the Kliva Get took over the world, right? The reason it was Marish Shalamis, the way it was Marish Shalamis, is because Rabbi Yisrael Lipschitz, who was the Mesader Get, who was a Goyin Olam, he felt that Itzik was Bedas when he went ahead and he divorced his wife. And then the Frankfurt Bezdin went kineged him, and they decided that he was really a shaita, and the Frankfurt Bezdin never explained why they felt the way they felt. And even though Rabbi Yaakov Emden and the Shagasarye, everybody reached out, just give us an explanation, they refused to explain themselves. And what happened was this shaila went from being a shaila about a divorce, a shaila about a get, to now all of a sudden it was a shaila about what the responsibility of a Bezdin is, and does one Bezdin have an obligation to explain itself to another Bezdin? And this is a little bit of what was going on. As a matter of fact, the Frankfurt Bezdin, at least to the human eye, seemed to have been getting agitated, that so many people were speaking out against it and questioning their authority, and people were asking legitimate shaylas, but they felt they had no chiyuv, they had no obligation to go ahead and to respond to it. And as a result, the Get of Cleves didn't just divide a husband and a wife, but really it divided the entire Europe. If you look at the Noid of Yehuda's lengthy tshuvas on the topic of the Kliva Get, he wrote many, many tshuvas. So this is towards the beginning of the first tshuva, and he's writing it to Reb Abishol Frankfurter, his close Yedid, and he says that I don't understand why the Bezdin has such a hard time with the question. Listen to this one line. He says, let's say we're nothing compared to you. We're mamish talmidim b'makim rabbim. But a Talmud is not allowed to ask his Rebbe a question, and a Rebbe is supposed to get agitated when he asks this question, when a Talmud asks him a question. He said, Reish Lakish was a Talmud of Rabbi Yochanan. And he argues with him in many places. And I don't know of one place, said the Noid of Yehuda, that Rabbi Yochanan got upset. He got at the Reish Lakish. The kachu darkish al Torah, and the reason is because this is darkish al Torah. Zeh makshav v'zeh mefarish. Hit me. What's the oimik of the words? You think the Noid of Yehuda just gave a mashal Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish? The Noid of Yehuda, every word is zahav, mamish. What did Noid of Yehuda mean? He went this as follows. We learned the Gemara last week where Rabbi Yochanan got upset. Right, we started with two, the Gemara in Yavamis Sadik Vav. When did he get upset? He got upset when Rabbi Lazar was in Beis Medrash and Rabbi Lazar was saying Torah and he wasn't saying it over in his name. And he felt bad because he knew and we've always mentioned Rabbi Yochanan didn't have already. He lost his 10 sons during his lifetime and he needed his hemshach. And as a result, he was very disappointed. He said, I'm going to lose that on this. The Ikbid Rabbi Yochanan, the Gemara says. Another Gemara. The Gemara says in Bava Metzia Pei Daled Amud Aleph that after Reish Lakish left the world, Reish Lakish died, Reish Lakish left the world, and Rabbi Yochanan was so lost, he didn't know what to do. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Lazar, the Olam said, let Rabbi Lazar sit and learn together with Rabbi Yochanan. He'll be Mephias him. And Rabbi Yochanan started saying, learning, and what did Rabbi Lazar say? Oh, Gevaldik, Tanya Nami Hachi, Tanya Nami Hachi. And then Rabbi Yochanan, in one of the great moments in Shas, turns to Rabbi Lazar, and he tells Rabbi Lazar, I want to say something to you. He said, you don't think I know I'm saying good? I need you to tell me Tanya Nami Hachi. When I used to learn Reish Lakish, I used to say something, and he would bomb away at me. He used to ask me 24 kashas on everything I ever said. And you know what? Ich hab gesagt terutzen ubekach. And like this, we came out with the sugya. You're telling me Tanya Nami Hachi? I don't need you for that. That's what the Nabi was saying. You find Rabbi Yochanan got upset. He got upset at Rabbi Lazar even more than one time. If Rabbi Lakish is his Talmud Muvik as in 1A, so Rabbi Lazar is 1. He's been he's a close second. You know when he got upset at him? When he told him Tanya Nami Hachi. He got upset. He wasn't saying Torah in his name. But Rabbi Yochanan, where I think the Noid of Yehuda saw a little nitiyah to big pay that to Talmidim if they don't behave properly. Mamish, you remember the Gemara in Yavamis? They couldn't be Mephias Rabbi Yochanan. Rav Ami tried, till Baridi came, How come you can't be Matthias me like Baridi? The Ikpid Rabbi Yochanan ba'ofen nifla adamai. I'll tell you another one. Remember Rav Kahana, the mice with Rav Kahana, and then the Bava Kama, Rav Kahana was asking Kashnas and Rabbi Yochanan, and he had that smirk, and it was just because of something related to his face, and he was the Ikpid Rabbi Yochanan. Rav Kahana died because of the Ikpid Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan's a shtickle captain in Shas, a Mega Zogan. You see it clearly. You see he has this Nitiyah for Kpeda. Oh, but he was never mocked, not one place in Shas and Reish Lakish. And said the Noida B'Yehuda, you would think that if there was any person, he would have been makbid on Voltas Given Reish Lakish. But he was never makbid. Fakert, he wanted him to ask kashas. And the Kpeda on Rebbe Loza came because of the Tanya Nami Hachis. Good, Rav Kahana did it with a litzonis. He thought he was laughing at him. But there was in one place, not the Noida B'Yehuda, Halei Reish Lakish Talmidei Shel Rabbi Yochanan Haya V'nechlak Ola B'Harbin Mekaymis V'Hikbid Rabbi Yochanan Ola Mayayim. I think it's Emes Lamitoy. This is the Oimek. This is what the Noid B'Yehuda meant to say over there. This is what's going on over here. But I'll call him. That's this Indian. That's what's going on over here as it relates to Kol HaShechech Davar Echmi Mishnasai. We said 4 hours. We're going to stop after 3, and Be'ezah Hashem tomorrow we'll come back and we'll chazer over this sugya of chazering and not forgetting one's learning.